Welcome to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I'm your host, Patty Lynch. Have you ever seen an amazing shuffler at a show or festival and wondered, how did they get started? How did they develop their skills? And who are they beyond the dance floor? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring in this show. We'll dive into the personal experiences of the dancers that make up our beloved community. We'll be learning more about who they are and what makes this dance so special to them. So, with that, let's jump into the show and let's get curious together. This is episode 26 of the Shuffle Curious podcast, featuring Amy Conte, shuffle dance instructor out of Denver, Colorado, and a fellow Mile High shuffler. I hope you guys enjoy. Amy, what's up?
What's up, Patty? Thanks for having me.
Of course. How are you?
I'm doing well. Busy. How about yourself?
I'm great. I had some travels, and I'm just getting snapped back in. So, and you are my first interview being back. So thank you for being on. And this has been a long time coming, you know?
Oh, yes.
I remember seeing you it was the MHS after curfew event, and the podcast had just come out or whatever, and a couple of people were approaching me, and you were one of them, and you're like, oh, that's so cool that you're doing that and all these things, but it was still very young in the process. And
yes, I remember this.
I remember just mentioning to you, I was like, I'd love to have you on. And like, I think that's kind of what sparked it from the beginning, for both of us, like to have an intention to speak to each other in this manner. So I'm excited that this has come to fruition in this way. So thank you again.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is awesome. I'm happy to be here and to share and to chat and catch up as well.
Of course. And yeah, like we just haven't been afforded the opportunity to chat at this length and to really fill in some gaps about each other. Because for the most part, we've been seeing each other at classes, meetups, shows in passing. Not all those environments are like super conducive to just having a conversation like this.
Totally.
So, yeah, we were just talking about losing our voices at music festivals. And, we were saying that like when you're just screaming over the music, trying to communicate with people, it's like, is that really effective communication either? It's like, probably not. So I'm glad we have this space to be able to do it.
Yeah, me too.
But I just want to clue the listeners in to how we met initially. So if my memory is correct, I'm pretty sure it was Shuffle Wisdom, the Halloween Shuffle Wisdom that Jolie put on in Denver.
Yes. If my memory is correct, that was the first time.
Thank you for verifying.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think it was.
And that's where I met Jake as well. Mm-hmm. And but it was funny when he was on before. I came on the podcast and I was like, yeah, the first time I met you was at the church nightclub. And he was like, no. It was at Shuffle Wisdom. He's like, and that's where you met Amy too. I was like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. Because then I deduced it to that because there were reasons why, like when we saw each other later that month at the church nightclub, like we had stuff to talk about and like we were familiar. So it's like, I knew that there must have been something before that. So he helped.
That was a fun night too. Kyle Watson.
Yes. He threw down. He threw down at the church. So that was good. But at that event, at the Shuffle Wisdom event, I was very much just like still getting started. I think I had been shuffling for less than a year at that point. Okay. So seeing you, you know what I mean, getting after it, I know that I was nervous to like make an introduction with you and honestly a lot of other people because there was a lot of really awesome talent there.
Yeah,
so
it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very much like a shuffle toddler at that time, and you guys were all my superheroes. So a little bit intimidating to make those introductions. But we did. So that was ground zero for our relationship. Yeah. But since then, like I've said, seeing you at classes, the ones that you've been teaching and things of that nature, and all these meetups, festivals, shows, all that stuff. So, and it's great to have you in Denver. So because we can cross paths more than not.
Yeah, absolutely. I love being here. There's just so many different opportunities and people to connect with. And, coming from New York City, being like on that coast and in that shuffle community, it was just we were a bit more spread out. People were in Brooklyn, people were in New Jersey. So there weren't there weren't just as many opportunities as there have been out here for me to connect with this shuffle community. So yeah, it's been really refreshing ever since I moved here to just meet people like yourself and to just continue to like foster and build this community as well.
And we can definitely get into that. You've created something in your wake that I think is very special.
Thanks.
With the teaching and with the instructing that you've been doing. And we can talk about how that kind of came to fruition and how the path was kind of set for you to do this and to do it in Denver nonetheless. So, but before that, I'd like to know a little bit more about your background, and I'm sure the audience would like to know that as well. So if you could tell us, where are you originally from before you came to Denver? How long have you been in Colorado at this point? And I'll have one more question for you. You can start there though.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll try not to go too far off the rails because I've kind of been all over the place. I've had so many different experiences. But yeah, I'm from New Jersey. I'm not from Colorado or California. People think we're like West Coast babies, but we're not. We're from the East Coast. I grew up right outside of Manhattan in a small town in New Jersey called Nutley. If you know what Nutley is, then you're definitely from New Jersey because people who live even a few towns over don't know what Nutley is, but it's this small little Italian town. I like to say we have marinara sauce dripping from the water fountains. And it is kind of like a little bubble. But I loved it. I loved my childhood and my experiences growing up. I grew up dancing and, at a very young age 3, I was doing ballet, tap, jazz. My first dance class was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, followed by Rock and Robin, so bops.
Bop, the bangers.
Bangers. But I just always loved to dance. I always loved to move. It wasn't something that my parents forced me to do. It was something that I genuinely loved to show up for and show up in. And I got into cheerleading when I was a kid, and I loved that. And I did, the performing arts. I was a theater kid. And so I was always looking for ways to like really get involved and to do a lot. And, whether it was on student council or, graduating, going off to college and being in my sorority and holding different leadership roles there. But yeah, I went to school in Arizona. I went to Arizona State. And that's kind of where I got introduced to like the festival community and the rave community. And towards the end of my time in college, I fell into shuffling, or not fell into shuffling, but I found out what shuffling was. It was finally like on my Instagram explore page. But yeah, at the end of college, I also met my now fiance, Jake, the real James P. We met in Miami during Ultra. I'm sure a lot of our stories will also be the same. So I apologize for that.
No, it's all right.
For the listeners.
It's a different flavor because like you're telling it from a different perspective.
Totally. Yeah. I moved back to the East Coast after college and, did the whole 9 to 5 and I worked at iHeartRadio. So being in a big, company like that was kind of like the dream for me. And I was there for about a year before kind of falling out of love with that and just falling more and more in love with festivals and raves and this community. And so I started my shuffle journey in 2017. And, from there, I just started to be more and more connected. It took me a while to build the confidence to get into all of that and to reach out to people and to go to meetups and to, approach people at shows and whatnot. But once I kind of started to find my flow, I just felt a lot more confident with all of it. And the pandemic hit. I lost my job. And, while that could have been, a big bummer, I kind of looked at it as more so of an opportunity. And at that point, I was about 4 years into my journey. So I started to teach for free, donation-based, just on Zoom. And then I started to do some private lessons. And then my time on the East Coast was up. We were living in Hoboken and our lease was up after 2 years. And that was when we decided to move to Denver. We had visited during the summer of 2020. And it's funny, it kind of felt like immediately once when we landed, we were like, wait, we could live here. And that wasn't the intention with coming out here. The intention was to visit a friend and to, catch up and do something in these dark times. But no, it was kind of immediately, we were like, wait, we could be here. we don't have to be there. And
It flipped for you.
Yeah,
Switch,
yeah. And our goal has always been California. Like, we love California, we love LA. We're like, we can kind of like make our way out there eventually. Maybe just do a little pit stop in Denver for a few years. So yeah, we moved here in I was going to say March of 2021. We were here for like an entire month to really kind of just like determine that this is what we wanted to do. And during that time, so even before I started moving here, I started teaching here at the studio where I still teach my private lessons at. So I was like, okay, I could maybe do this out here too. And I can continue to build upon what I've already been building on the East Coast. And because that was a big thing for me with leaving the New York City area. Jake and I had started to, kind of get more and more into that community. And I started to host meetups, and I was like, oh, do I really want to leave when I just started to like make a name for myself out here? But, kind of just trusted my intuition, and, they say jump and the net will appear. And I feel like that's really what happened for me, like moving out to Denver. And so, yeah, I've been here just past 2 years in May, and things have just really worked out for us. And we have even more like connections and friends out here than we ever did on the East Coast, which is crazy to think. But yeah, I love it. I'm not sure how much longer I'll be in Denver. I don't know if it'll be 5 years. I don't know if it'll be 1 year, but loving what we have going on here right now. And yeah, that's kind of what led me to this point.
Amazing. That was a great synopsis and it was a lot that we can unpack. You know what I mean? It was just scratching the surface. So like we can definitely dig into a lot of those chapters that you described. I just want to backpedal a little bit back to you and like who you are. I love to ask this question because I think it kind of showcases, who someone is at their core.
Yeah.
How were you as a child?
I've listened to your podcast before, and I knew you were going to ask that question. And I love that question because I really do think that it tells a lot about who a person is and kind of how they got to where they are now. I was shy. I was really shy. Once I got to know someone, I was a little bit more out of my comfort zone. But I remember like
in your comfort zone, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I remember like hiding behind my parents, like when we would meet people, and kind of just like not wanting to say hi to anyone, like not wanting to like hug even like my family members. Like I would be like so shy and just like to myself, like I was very introverted when I was a kid. But yeah, I just feel like the things that I've involved myself in over the years have just brought me more and more out of my shell, from dancing as a young kid and cheerleading and the performing arts and being in a sorority and then the shuffle community. Like, I feel like those are definitely a lot of pillars that kind of broke me out of that space. But yeah, I was definitely shy, but always loved to be doing something. Like, I've never been a homebody. And I think that kind of has just rubbed off on me from my parents. Like, my parents treated us so well as kids. We were always going on trips and Disney World and these fun vacations, and or even if it was just like a weekend up to Boston or down to Washington, D.C., like we were always doing things. And so that's definitely rubbed off on me in good ways and also like not so good ways, because now I'm like, I always need to be doing something. But yeah, to answer your question, like pretty introverted, but always very kind. Like, I've always been very kind and welcoming. And, something that people have always told me is that they love how like inclusive I am. And I feel like that's something that I embodied at a very young age, was just, wanting to include everyone. And I remember my mom having like our list of the students in our class every year. They would always give you like the names, the phone numbers, the emails. So you had like everyone who was in your class and you can call them. And we would just go down the entire class list one by one. Friday by Friday, my mom would say, okay, you're going to call this person and invite them on a play date. And then the next week would come, my mom would say, okay, next is so-and-so, invite that person on a play date. And so, yeah, that kind of brought me to a place of just being, like I said, like very inclusive and kind and, seeing the good in others like at all times, which I've carried with me throughout my entire life.
Yeah, that's a gift that it seems like your mom kind of gave you, or foster. Or maybe you had it in you and she brought it even more out. That's beautiful.
No, I am like, my mom's friends always say it, like I'm just like a spitting image of my mom, like especially at that time, and now too, like we're very similar in like our mannerisms and just the way we treat other people too, and the way that we feel and whatnot. But I have become much more extroverted since then, and I'll even go back to that route and be like, oh yeah, I'm a very introverted person. People are like, no, you're not. Like, I guess I'm not. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, things have changed, but I'm also like who I am to my core still.
Yeah, and I think that scale kind of tips in different directions like that. Yeah, a lot of people will say like I'm an extrovert, but that means that you're 50%. You're on the other side of 50% of
Right,
extroversion.
exactly.
Like I think everyone has a little bit of introversion in them, and even introverts have a little bit of extroversion in them as well. It's just like how much time do you need to yourself to recharge your battery, and how much can you take of people before you need to recharge your battery? Things of that nature. So yeah, we're all different in that regard, but very cool to hear about. So I want to ask you how long you've been shuffling, but I think I know the answer to that. Is that 6 years now?
Yeah, I just passed my 6-year anniversary on August 8th. And it's funny, one of my students, her name is Rachel, she reached out. I forgot about my shuffle anniversary, and I posted something that day, and she followed up and was like, oh, and happy shuffle anniversary. And I'm like, wow, the fact that you remembered that and I didn't. And August 8th is also like the Lions portal. So I think that kind of like attributed to me kind of stepping into that transformation on that day back in 2017. So yeah, 6 years.
What is a Lions portal? I'm sorry.
It's like the entering into Leo season.
Okay.
So honestly, I'm not the best person to explain it. Like I'm not that spiritual to be like really breaking it down, but it's basically like the one day of the year where like the manifestations are the strongest. So if you need to manifest something, they say to do it on that day. And I felt like that was me. Like I didn't even know what Lions Portal was back then. And obviously now I'm still not like 100% in tune with that spiritual aspect. But yeah, it's basically like the one day of the year where like your manifestations can like be the strongest. And yeah, I felt like I was kind of manifesting without even knowing it, like to get to the point where I'm at right now, being that it was that day when I started my shuffle journey.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
August 8th.
August
you said
8th.
August 8th? Okay. No, it does make sense. It does make sense.
Yeah.
That's my brother's birthday.
Really?
I wonder what that means.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just a very powerful day.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I have a video that you sent me that I'd like to watch with you and have the listeners watch it as well. This is going to be kind of like a new segment of the show, just because we talk a lot about the background and like the origin stories and all these things, but not everyone sees it, or it takes an extra step for them to pull up Instagram, go find your handle, all that stuff. So it's like I want people to kind of just see it on the screen right now. So it's coming up. So this is the video that you sent, which the beginning is super vibey. And I just love that you're in nature as well.
Yeah, so this was, is it okay if I talk over it?
Yeah, of course.
So this was last year, it was June of last year, and I'd actually just discovered this album. I knew who T Mack was, but that day I had just discovered this album, and I'm blanking on the exact name of the album. It might be called Rebirth, but one of the songs on it is Rebirth, Be Here Now, Just to Hear You Say, and all these songs are just like so beautiful. But I was by myself, Jake was out of town, and yeah, it was just a really hot day. I remember getting back in my car after I took that video, and it was literally 99 degrees. I'm like, wow, no way, I need to sit in air conditioning now. But yeah, so that was just, it was by myself, completely alone, and I went on a hike with no intention to dance. Like, but I was just listening to that podcast, that album, and just like vibing so hard to it on my way to Boulder. And then, put my headphones in and started listening to it on my hike. And I just passed this like perfect spot. Like it literally looked like a stage. And the song I was dancing to was Be Here Now. And that was the song I was listening to. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I like should be here now. Like, let me enjoy this space and enjoy the fact that there's no one around, even though it was like a Saturday morning. Like should have been more people around. Like should have been someone standing in that spot. It was a beautiful view. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like enjoy this and groove and vibe. And I've posted a couple videos from that like small little sesh that I had in the middle of my hike. But I just remember feeling so like refreshed after it and so proud of that flow. And it's not like that video has like 1 million views or anything. Like I honestly, like when I posted it, I was like, this is one of my favorite videos. And like, I bet no one's gonna see it, and that's fine. Like, I feel like all my favorite videos just don't get seen as much as, the festival videos or maybe some other content, but those are always the videos that like mean so much to me, the takes, the flows that mean so much to me. And that being one of them. And I come back to that video all the time, kind of just when I need to be like refreshed or reminded. And yeah, I love Tin Liquor. I love that message that song kind of shares. But yeah, no, it was a special day. And I think a lot of that was the fact that like I was in solitude, like I was alone with my thoughts, like, which doesn't happen often for me. Like,
You're a busybody.
I'm busy, and Jake and I, we live together. We both work from home. So we both dance. We're both involved in the same things. So it was just like the one weekend when he wasn't around. And I went on a hike that day, and I also went on a hike the next day and by myself, which I don't totally advise, but it was just so nice and refreshing. And yeah, I just felt like it was not necessarily like an aha moment, but it was just a moment that like meant a lot to me.
Got it. Yeah, not everyone, when you post a video, not everyone can get a peek of the emotion behind it, like all the lead up to it. You know what I mean? Like you didn't go on that hike to dance. Like it wasn't an intention of yours. It was by the influence of like the music that compelled you to move, and then like you showed that through your dance and you expressed it. So it's like there's that backstory to it as well that means a lot to you, which not everyone will truly understand, and like they don't need to either. You know what I mean? So it's good to have those videos that you did just for yourself as well. You know what I mean?
So that being said, I'm happy that we talked about that one specifically, because it is one that people don't really know what goes on the background in your head, and so it was nice to share that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to mention, there's a little bit of shapes in there. You started with a big running man there. And I saw a little rock, a T-step rock in the middle of it, some reverse running man. So you're very much a hybrid shuffler. It seems like you definitely lean towards shapes and cutting shapes and that kind of style. So just for the audience who viewed that video and might not know all the styles that you threw in there, I would just like to highlight that as well, that you're very diverse in your style.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the shapes were home for me. Like I started shuffling or I was inspired to start to shuffle because of shaper videos, which I didn't even know at the time. But yeah, I was just watching a bunch of shaping content, and also my space that I had to practice in, like when I first started shuffling, was very tiny.
This was was this in college?
It was after college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I started shuffling after college. But yeah, I've always gravitated towards shapes, and part of me is like, like, get your Melbourne, to the point where you want it to be. But, shapes are just me. They're fun, they're funky, they're wild. And so, yeah, they definitely come out more in my flow than like a solid running man or rock, but I'm working on it.
Got it. Love to see it. I love your flow in general. And I love that you work on your flow too. You know what I mean? You're not just sticking to one thing, like you're constantly improving on everything. So, it's something that I need to do for myself as well. I would like to do more shapes and things of this nature.
Oh my gosh, you would crush it.
Yeah, I think so. Like, cause just knowing how to do a Polly Pocket, well, I'm not the best that I could, I have been, but I've drilled it, has actually helped with Moss, step. Cause like when you switch on your Moss and you go into your Moss T-step, you need to do a quick Polly Pocket and you need to be crisp with it. Right. So it's like, a lot of people think that, shaping has no place for these other styles, but that's far from the truth. In my experience, and there might be other experiences that people have where it's like, I definitely implement it here, there,
Sure. Oh, when I first discovered Moss, I was like, I can do this and do my shapes and combine it all.
Yeah, no, it's a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. But you were kind of mentioning when you first started, I would like to backpedal from that a little bit. Yeah. You had mentioned that you had saw some videos on Instagram and like you were kind of maybe getting bombarded by them. Just the I think a lot of shapes go on Instagram because it's very appealing to
especially at the
see.
Time when I was starting, I felt like it was more appealing and just what was being more pushed out there.
Was that your first data point with shuffling where it was like that, it kind of clicked for you, like this could be something that I'd be interested in? Like what was the lead up to you then starting?
No, it's funny because I started shuffling in 2017 and at that time, like people didn't really post, and even before 2017, of course, like people didn't post tutorials. TikTok wasn't a thing. And the only people shuffling on Instagram were good. Like there were no beginner shufflers, no baby shufflers. Like no one was posting on Instagram unless they knew what they were doing.
Got it.
And so that's all I saw was these people who were like insane. And I'm thinking, how do I get to that point? But I don't remember exactly like the very first time that I saw shuffling, but I remember the first time that I attempted to shuffle. And it was in college. And this is why I'm saying I don't know when the first time I saw it was, because I don't even know how I would have been exposed to it in college, because I really don't have much recollection of thinking about shuffling in college. But I do remember standing in my apartment one day and there was no one home, and I must have seen it on Instagram or something, and I was like, let me just try. And I like did one running man and was like, nope, no,
this ain't it.
No, that was weird. Never again, like stop. And so that was maybe in like 2015 or 2016. And then yeah, at the end of 2016, or not end of 2016, but at the end of my school year, so I was just graduating, and I remember Jake was at EDC New York in 2016, and so on my Explore page was all EDC New York, and I saw a video of Gabby Davis, and who's like an amazing shaper. Her footwork is phenomenal. And she's also a dancer too. So I felt like I felt more connected to, or more like aligned with her style. But yeah, I just remember being like, what is this? It looks like she's having so much fun and this is so cool to watch. And I let it marinate for like a good year after that, and just, was served up more and more shuffle videos, and I started to follow shufflers, and I kind of always knew that I, eventually, all right, like just rip the Band-Aid off, like just do it. But yeah, about a year later, like I remember having dreams that I was shuffling. Like I could feel myself shuffling in my dream, and like, or I would be like sitting on the bus, like on the way to work, and I could like envision myself shuffling. And I'm like,
was this before or after you started like that, like before. Practicing? Okay.
Before
that's interesting.
I started, like that's how much it was just in my kind of like forefront. And yeah, I remember like sitting on the bus and like closing my eyes and like envisioning myself shuffling, and I'm like, okay, if I can feel it, then like I can do it. And I feel like in those moments I was really manifesting like being able to shuffle. Like that's what they say, like in order to accomplish something, like you need to like envision it first, like you need to like be able to see it. And like that was me like seeing myself shuffling, and I'm like, I can do it. But yeah, the first time, so now we're getting to like when I actually started to shuffle for real. But it was in 2017, and like getting into summer of 2017, like maybe June 2017, I didn't hate my job, but I just knew it wasn't for me. And I was living at home with my parents, and I'm like, I'm going to quit. So I quit my job. And then right after that, I went to Electric Forest for the first time, and I was with Jake as well. And I just remember like walking through a stage. It was called the Forest Stage. It's not there anymore, but basically like in the middle of the forest, bunch of wood chips, just like a random stage. And it was house music that was playing. And we walked over, and I see a kid just like wilding out. And then I recognized him from Instagram, but his name is Kevin McAllister, T Mack on Instagram.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but he, I would see him on my Explore page, so I recognized him immediately. I knew who he was. I felt his energy. And I was just like, oh my God. Like I didn't really see it in person yet until that moment. And I was just so mesmerized. And we connected afterwards because he's from the New York City area. And then I would continue to run into him at shows and whatnot. And again, that was before I started shuffling. So it kind of took a while for me to like enter his realm again and be like, hey, by the way, now I can shuffle. Like, let's hang out. But yeah, that was kind of what pushed me to do it finally. And about a month later, Jake was out of town for a while. He was in Africa for work, and I was lonely and I had nothing else to do. And I'm like, if you're not going to do it now, then like, when are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And so I did. I just like got out of bed. It was probably like midnight, and I just stood up, and I still have the video. I just stood right next to my bed in like this little tiny like 2x2 space probably, and just I started to like try to learn and try to do the running man. And I could like hit one maybe, and then like wouldn't be able to hit it, but I could like feel like, oh no, like that's what it what it's supposed to feel like. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it. And I just never stopped like that. From that day, I just never stopped shuffling. And I was just always trying to, get more connected and to reach out to more people and to like immerse myself in the community. But it took a while to immerse myself. And that's not because I didn't feel welcomed or anything, but it's kind of like the expectation that you put on yourself. And like I said, the only people posting on Instagram were people who were good and people
Yeah.
who knew what they were doing. So to even like slide into their DMs and be like, hey, how can I continue to learn and grow? But I reached out to Tupul Billy.
Yeah.
Great human. But I reached out to him just to be like, hey, like, are there any classes? Like, fully knowing that there weren't classes. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
knew that shuffling classes did not exist. I knew that the only way to learn was to teach yourself. But I was like, maybe he knows something that I don't know. And I reached out to him. He was like, hey, like, no, but like, we meet up every whatever. Like, this is when Shuffle NYC was a thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Shuffle NYC.
No,
But
no.
it's like the shuffle group in New York City. And now it's kind of turned into Nameless more
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
But it used to be Shuffle NYC. And like, no, Shuffle NYC, like we get together every, Tuesday or whatever the case might be on Tuesdays in Brooklyn, and you should come. And I'm like, no way. Like, no way. But yeah, no, thank you for the invite. Like, I'll think about it. And so it kind of took like more and more experiences like that of like me putting myself out there and people being so welcoming and me not really expecting that and people responding to my DMs. And, I would ask people for tips and, should I wear shoes or what do you do here? And people would respond. And so it kind of gave me like that sense of belonging, which I think is like really what the shuffle community is all about, is like, is that sense of belonging that it just kind of like is infused throughout the entire community. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And then I just put my foot on the gas and it's still on and we're going.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned this and you're kind of being like coy with reaching out to people and things like that, because I think a lot of us go into this thinking that like, oh, no one's going to be here to teach me or no one's going to be helpful. Like, I have to learn this on my own, like all that stuff. But it's like none of us realize how inviting the community actually is, because it's it is a niche dance. It's still very much a niche dance. It's not as big as hip hop or any of these like more mainstream dances. So it's one of those things where when someone sees that you're making like a valiant effort to like learn the dance, they're excited because now they have more people that they can connect with through the dance. So I think it's just so different than any other dance form in that regard. Like, everyone is typically stoked to see other people learning it. So, but I think new shufflers need to learn that for themselves, how inviting it actually is. Cause like they're going to feel like imposters for the longest time. Like, I know that was me as well. I mean, it even took, I felt like an imposter every time I went to Mile High Shufflers meetup. You know what I mean? Even though I was met with all these smiley faces, it didn't matter. It still felt like, I was out of place because it was a bunch of superheroes doing their thing on the dance floor. And then there's me,
Well, and the thing is like, and I wish someone would have told me this back then, but you can progress so quickly with shuffling. Like, it can't be too long until you're that hero, on the dance floor who people are, shouldn't be, but like might be intimidated by. And if you keep at it and if you're consistent and if you do make like that valiant effort, like the results are going to be there no matter what. Like there's just there's no denying that.
Absolutely. So do you think you kind of like pay homage to Electric Forest for being the first instance where you saw someone like getting down and like being so expressive that it like clicked for you to actually start it? Do you think like that
it's
was
funny when you say that? I like kind of got chills because I never really thought about it like that. And Electric Forest is a festival that it means so much to me. And I went 3 years in a row. I went 17, 18, and 19, and each year I grew so much as a shuffler. Well, not 2017 because I wasn't doing it back then, but went back in 2018 and was like tearing it up on the dance floor. And then went back in 2019 and like videographers were following us around in Gorgon City. And so it's funny to see the progression just in that environment alone. But yeah, I would say that if it wasn't for that experience, I think it would have found me eventually. But if it wasn't for that experience, I don't think I would have been so willing to just go for it. Because I saw it right in front of me. And I even saw it a few days. I think that was on like the first or the second day of Electric Forest. And then I remember on Sunday, I'm standing at the same stage and there were just these 3 girls in front of me. And I would love to know who they are now because they could be active members of the shuffle community. They could have been some of my friends now, and I don't even know who they were because I was standing behind them and I didn't shuffle and I wasn't I didn't have the confidence to go up to them and to ask them, what they were doing or if they would teach me. But there were these three girls standing in front of me and they were just doing the Running Man. And that was also really inspiring to me. I'm like, wow, like and I said this over and over again, if I could just like whip out the Running Man at a festival, like that's all I care about. And it was from that, that entire experience. So yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Got it. No, that's very cool. Because I always hear about how these events like festivals are they foster level ups. You know what I mean? Like when you're already shuffling, they inspire people to hit that next level, and they leave the festival just better than ever. And I think that's due to the energy. I think that's due to the other people, like the other inspirations, the music that maybe you haven't heard before, other things that you might have been doing at the festival. I don't know. But but I've never heard in your case that like, and it's unique because it was like an inspiration. Something clicked for you at that festival to get you started. Like I've never heard that where it's like you saw someone doing the thing and like that's what helped you out.
Definitely. Yeah.
So moving on to when you got out of bed and you were in that 2x2 area and you were just starting to do the Running Man. I want to know like what the progression was from that point on. Yeah. I mean, was it frustrated? You said you were doing it every single day after that time, more or less. You know what I mean? You were kind of hooked at that time, but that doesn't mean it was all like easy days or easy sessions and things like that. What was that first 6 months like from that point on when you were learning the ropes and you're trying to kind of figure this out for yourself?
Awkward for sure. It did not feel good at first. And, I encounter students all the time and they're like, they just don't have that beginner's mindset at the beginning. And they're like, oh no, like you look so good doing it. Like I can't do it. And I'm like, if you only knew what I looked like when I started. But yeah, so I started just by trying to mimic the Running Man and then also mimic some cutting shapes. Because there's this move that we do in ballet that kind of mimics like a Charleston or like a cross in out. So I was kind of like you like releve and then like go back down and cross your feet. So that's kind of how I was relating like cutting shapes to I was relating like ballet to like cutting shapes essentially. So yeah, kind of just finding ways to make sense of it. But yeah, I started with the Running Man and then I quickly went into shaping the W step specifically. And I remember finding a video of, you might not even know who she is, but Genevieve.
No.
She's a Montreal shuffler. She was definitely like really, really big when I first started shuffling. And she's still so talented, of course. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her. But she's another person who like I saw doing on Instagram and I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. Like this cool, funky girl dancing around her driveway. Like if she can do it, I can do it. And I remember finding a YouTube video of hers and it was it was all shape moves and she was filming it from this angle. And that really helped me. Like she was filming it like looking down at her feet like that. And that really helped me make sense of a lot of the cutting shapes moves. But honestly, the one biggest hurdle for me to get over was the T-step. And I knew that the T-step was like such a fundamental move, but I didn't even know what it was called or how to do it. But I just knew that there was always this thing that people did when they like stepped to the side and it like wasn't the Running Man, but it was kind of like a sideways Running Man. And I just remember like not being able to wrap my head around that. And every time I would do it, my body would turn. And so lots of like moments of frustration like that. Like, I'm like, oh, I know how it should look, but I don't know how to do it. And I think that's kind of why I really leaned into teaching is because it not only am I able to like teach people and explain it, but being able to break it down for myself also helps me make so much sense of like, oh, what was I doing wrong back then? Like, oh, I was turning my hips every time I did a T-step, so that's why my direction was changing. And so even now I'm still learning about kind of my experiences back then. But yeah, the first 6 months were hard. You just want to be as good as how you want to be, you want to be, I don't want to say the best, but you want to be like your inspirations. You want to dance to music that's at that tempo that you know and you love. And so I kind of had to like reel it in for a sec and be like, oh, I have to dance to slow songs. Got it. Like, and I remember finally finding a song that worked for me and it was Working For It by Zoo. And if I knew then what I knew now, I would have plugged in Working For It to songbpm.com. This website, songbpm.com, tells you every BPM. And I would have tried to find other songs that had that same BPM. Because once I found that song, and it was probably like 2 months into my shuffle journey was when I like found that song and started like just practicing to that song. I was like, wow, it's so much easier when I do it slower. So yeah, just a lot of like aha moments and figuring things out. And then I specifically remember like the first day that I was like, I'm gonna post a video. And so I started in August. Took me until December to finally share a video on Instagram, and my palms were literally sweating. Like I was
pacing back
so
and forth,
nervous. Yep. I'm like sweating right now just thinking about it. But yeah, I was. Jake was living in Rhode Island at the time, and he had a great space to practice in, which I never really had, living at home with my parents. And so yeah, I just remember I went there one day and I recorded all these videos, and I finally posted one, and I'll send it to you after this so you can.
Yeah, I'd love to share it in the show notes.
Yeah, but yeah, I just remember getting so much positive feedback from it, and people were like, "Whoa, like I didn't know you could do this." And I went and visited some of my school friends a few months later, and it was all they talked about. And I'm like, "Wow, like okay, people like this. Like I'll keep doing it." And so yeah, those first 6 months were challenging, frustrating, but also like that's all part of the journey. And so beautiful in their own ways as well.
Yeah, you were hitting like milestones, and I'm sure it was like a positive feedback loop for you. And I think, going throughout those 6 months and having those frustrations really resonate with you has helped you with teaching and things like that, because you know how you felt when you couldn't hit the T-step that well. And it's like now you can put yourself in the shoes of a student who is having those same struggles. And it's like, you've gone through it, and like you internalized it to some regard, or, you internalized it very well. Cause like, it's one of the things that you brought up, like when you were describing those first 6 months. So it's like, you can really empathize with a beginner. And I think that's like that's a superpower being a teacher as well. Cause like, you just know where someone's coming from. And I'm definitely going to put the songbpm.com in the show notes too. If I had known about that website when I was learning too, that would have been huge. Cause I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, people want to dance to the music that they like. Yeah. They want to shuffle to the music that they like, but that's not always what's going to progress them the fastest. Like,
especially in those first 6 months, like you can't just try to dance as quickly as possible, because you're just not going to be doing the moves properly. You're going to be rushing through them.
Yeah. And, maybe at the end of your session, like once you put on a slow BPM song that maybe you don't jive with completely, but you've been doing good repetitions, maybe throw on something that you actually like, and like don't hit the beats or whatever, have it for fun. But I think it's very important to like drill that stuff, at a lower BPM. So thank you for that resource.
Absolutely. Happy to share.
So, from that point on, it seems like you were off to the races. And I just want to bring back in teaching, because I mean, that's a big part of your life now. And you're very much focused on that current day. So when did that kind of start to enter into the picture? How long were you shuffling for at that time? And, what was ground zero for teaching and instructing for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I started, 17, 18, 19, 19, 20. So I was shuffling for a little over 3 years when I started teaching. And, I think we all have that imposter syndrome of like, oh, I'm not good enough, or like, oh, there's already so many people out there who are teaching. And at the time there really wasn't. So I shouldn't have had those feelings, but I did. Like, people were starting to teach classes, in-person classes in New York City. It was becoming more and more of a thing. And I just remember thinking like, oh, like I don't have the time. And at the time, my company we were remote, but this was before COVID. So I traveled a lot. I was on the road a lot. I wasn't home a lot. And I just remember, thinking that I just don't have the time to teach, and being so jealous of the people who did have the time to teach. And, I went to a few classes in New York City before COVID, and I was like, oh, dang, like I wish I could do this, but like, I just don't have the time. And then COVID happened and I lost my job. and I had all the time in the world. And I was like, well, sad, but this is perfect. And people were reaching out to me, and I actually posted something on my Instagram story. I remember like I was so bored out of my mind and just wanted to talk to people and connect with people. And I posted like, hey, if anyone wants to DM me for some shuffle tips, like just DM me like for free. Like my DMs are open, and people were DMing me, and I was sending them videos back. And I was like, okay, people are interested. Like let me start to teach some classes. So it was April of 2020 was my first class. And actually for a few months, probably from like April to June, I was doing 2 classes a week. So I would do a beginner class and advanced class every week, choreographies every week. And then I started to kind of, expand that a bit more. And I started to do more like workshops. People were like, we want to learn how to transition. And I'm like, perfect, I'll do a transition workshop or a workshop on like finding your flow. And I talked all about like flow and like the philosophical meaning of flow and like what that is and all that. And then, just like beginner workshops or cutting shapes workshops. And yeah, it just kind of like spiraled, and I loved it, and I loved coming up with the ideas. But essentially at the end of the day, it was COVID. I was collecting my unemployment, I was collecting my money from the government, and everything was good. And then I moved to Denver, and that all kind of stopped. And I'm like, okay, now I need to get back into a full-time job. I need to find something that's going to be sustainable and
pay the
whatnot.
bills.
Yeah, pay the bills. So for about a year, I would say, from like the time I moved to Denver up until the time when we started teaching at Collaboratory, which is about a year after we moved here, it was a balancing act of like work and teaching and trying to find a way to do both, and also still meeting with my virtual students and being in a different time zone. And so yeah, there was a lot of give and take when it came to teaching, like when I first started to move here and like finding my footing. But yeah, then we started to teach at Collaboratory, and that became like a weekly thing, which was amazing. And it did take a while to kind of build to the point where we needed it to be or where we wanted it to be. But last summer we would have a group of 25, 30 people in the room. And so to know that I was logging on Zoom at whatever April of 2020, and there would be like 3 people staring at me, and I'd be like, all right, cool, like let's do it. To then being in Denver and having a full class of people in person, like looking back at me, like waiting for my instruction, doing it alongside with Jake, like it really just, I wouldn't say it came full circle, because it kind of just kept on going, and we'll see what comes from here. And now I've recently started to teach at festivals, and I feel like that's kind of always been my purpose now that I'm in it and I'm doing it. And I've always been so connected to festivals and to raves. Like from the time I stepped foot into my first festival, I was sold. Like I fell hard, I fell fast. I absolutely love the festival environment. And after going to Electric Forest that first year and wanting that experience of shuffling, I'm like, wow, like imagine if I was able to go to a class that day and learn how to shuffle. Like I saw it in person, I saw it in front of my eyes, and like how cool would that have been to just be able to have that opportunity. And so that's what I'm really into right now, is teaching at festivals, doing the festival workshops, and bringing shuffling to an environment that has given me so much. Like I have gotten so much out of the festival community, the festival culture. It's taught me so much about myself. It's given me shuffling. So to be able to give back in that way has just been really, really special. We just taught our last shuffle festival class of the year at Elements. So I'm hoping for more next year. I did 4 festival classes this year. But yeah, for right now, I'm really just focusing on building my own brand, continuing with the classes, finding ways to be more accessible to people not in the Denver area, and yeah, kind of just seeing where it all takes me.
Got it. That's amazing. You're like building your resume to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm like, I guess that's what's been happening all these years.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm sure starting, having consistent classes at the Collaboratory Complex, which is the studio, the dance studio that you teach at, you and Jake do duo classes for the most part. I think sometimes you guys take individualized classes and
sometimes someone's at a bachelorette party or
Yeah.
whatever, and we will have to go one by
someone's
one.
got to hold down the fort.
Someone's got to hold down the fort. Someone's got to bring home the bacon.
But I'm sure that was like the progression into then teaching at festivals. Like you could show those credentials and that, you're legitimate, and then that people kind of trust you based off of that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, very cool to hear about. What exactly I just want to dig a little bit deeper. What exactly is it about teaching that is just it seems like it's like your dream job. You know what I mean? What are the nuts and bolts that go into that really just keep you coming back and wanting to do more?
Yeah. So I love helping people. I'm a Virgo, so it's kind of in my nature to break things down and to, put things in a way that makes sense for people and to want to help and to want to nurture. So I think that's kind of what it comes down to at the core, is just like with everything I do, I want to help people, whether it's planning a trip or, making a dinner reservation or just giving resources or references or helping with how to cook something or helping with directions. Like that's in my nature to just help people. So I think that's kind of what it really all comes down to. But I also think it's just that like higher purpose, in all of this. I love shuffling. I love being able to move. I love being able to dance. I love being able to like feel my body in that way and to lock into that flow state. But I felt like once I started teaching, I was like, wow, like I thought shuffling was maybe my purpose, but now I feel like teaching and helping people and sharing this with others is my purpose. And I struggled so hard in the beginning to learn. And I'm not one of those people who's like, well, I had to, work from the ground up and teach myself and whatever. So now you have to no, I want to help you. I want to make it easier for you. Like, I don't want you to have to go through what I went through. Like, I want you to get to those aha moments a little bit quicker. And I also want to be there for those aha moments. Like when I'm there, I feel like selfish saying this, but like when I'm there for those aha moments for people, I'm like, yes, like I feel like I'm getting more out of that than they are sometimes. But it feels so good for me to like know that my teachings are like making sense and rubbing off on people. And when I get that feedback of like, no, that made a lot of sense. Like, oh no, you broke that down really clearly. I'm like, wow, thanks. Like I do kind of know what I'm doing with this sometimes. And so, yeah, but really at the core, I think it's just wanting people to feel good about their flow. And then also not wanting them to have to struggle with it. Like it should be fun,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an awesome why behind it as well, because you're going into it as like you want that the person across from you to absorb as much knowledge as you can in the finite amount of time that you have when you're instructing them. So you're trying to do it in the best way possible and be like the most effective instructor. So that's awesome. Doing it just to help. You know what I mean? You have a helping nature about you.
I mean, that's like when I first started doing it and I was talking about posting those Instagram stories, like I just wanted to help. Like it feels as good for me to help as it does for someone to like nail that Running Man for the first time.
Yeah. And like that, I mean, that opened up opportunities for you, like that nature that you had, because then it was like, oh, okay, Amy's giving tips. Like now let's do a class with her. You know what I mean? Like let's get her undivided attention,
definitely.
That sort of thing. Very cool. So you had mentioned that, and I think it goes into your the festivals, teaching at festivals and stuff like that. You've kind of developed a brand for yourself. Like you're the shuffle instructor. You know what I mean? That goes to these festivals and allows people to have the space to learn. And you break it down Barney style for them. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who go there and it's their first time trying to do it.
Most
you know what I mean?
People who come to the workshops at the festivals, it is their first time shuffling, and they have a similar story to me of like, oh, I see it all the time, but like I just didn't have an opportunity. I don't know where to go to learn. And also, I have an online presence too. So when people are going to Lightning in a Bottle and they see I'm teaching, they're like, wow, I get to learn from Amy when I'm there. Like I would never have an opportunity to do that otherwise. So while it might feel uncomfortable for them to start their shuffle journey in a outdoor space at a music festival surrounded by 100 people, like it's comforting because I feel like they know me too sometimes. But yeah, I love it. I'm really happy that I've kind of fallen into that little part of my shuffle journey because it's given me a lot, just like in my soul.
Yeah. I mean, and they probably have that trust going into it by seeing the track record and just the
True.
fact that there's other people beside them that are fumbling the ball just as
Oh,
bad as they
definitely.
are. Like that's normal. So
Yeah.
I think when you're in that space, I think when you're doing a one-on-one class with someone, they don't have the perspective. They just see the instructor killing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
So,
performing the movements, hopefully
yeah.
correctly and crisp. But when you're in those festival environments where it's like everyone's kind of on the same boat, I'm sure the people are maybe a little bit more experienced, are closer to the stage, closer to you,
Yeah.
and then the people who don't want to be seen are in the back and they're just trying to make all the mistakes.
Right.
So it's like you can probably look around and be like, okay, I'm not the worst person here,
sure.
or you know what I mean. So
definitely, and we'll even ask. I'll always ask that too, like whose first time is it shuffling, and most of the time, the majority of the room, their hands go up. Another thing that I think that really helps with teaching at festivals is that there's no mirrors. So while mirrors are helpful and they're there to help you, I think it's great that we don't have any at festivals because people aren't looking at themselves. They're not focused on themselves. They're not worried about themselves. They're just worried about what they're doing more so than how it looks, and concerned more about how it feels.
That's definitely good because I mean mirrors are instant reflection, of course, of like what you look like. But I think when you're first starting to learn, it's not super important. If anything, it might be discouraging to see how you actually look. It might be like just giving you every cringe response that you've ever had. So it might be good to like forego that for maybe a week or two, and then like okay, once you've kind of caught the bug and you like how it feels, then it's like you can rip off that band-aid and be like, oh, that's how I look. Okay, we got work to do. You know what I mean?
Totally.
That's a very cool point. I think it's conducive to learning by not having mirrors in that regard. But I think that your followership probably gives a lot of people comfort when they're going to these events. Like they see your page, they see what you've been doing, all that stuff. I want to know kind of like how all that came to be. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure it wasn't after the first shuffle video that you posted that like it got blown up. You know what I mean? Like I know that has been a part of your journey as well. So how did that kind of grow over time, and how did you kind of get the audience that you do today?
Yeah, so I do work in influencer marketing. I've worked in influencer marketing since 2018. So like right after I started shuffling, I got into influencer marketing, social media management, and all of that. And so I've always been really passionate about content and brands and social media. And then when the pandemic happened and I started teaching, I started to have to promote my classes. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go on my Instagram story and talk, but that's what other people do who are teaching classes. And like, I need people to like know who I am and to see my face and to trust me. And so that summer of 2020 was when I finally started to like show up on Instagram and show up and talk and post a lot more. And I was a lot more consistent. And I think we all want the views and we all want people to see what we're doing. And so that was kind of always in the back of my head was like, all my inspirations were influencers. They all had a following, and not that I need to be just like them, but those are the people who I looked up to. And so it was never something that was super important to me to gain followership, but I did want to put myself out there and I did want to grow, and I did want people in the community to know who I was, especially when I started teaching. But yeah, after that, Reels got released. And so, that was like end of summer 2020. And everybody was talking about how like, oh, like they might push your content out. Like everybody posts on Reels, blah, 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 blah. And I remember actually Jake posted a video on Reels. And before I was like, I don't want to do Reels. Like, it's just another thing I have to worry about. And I don't want to do Reels. And now I'm like posting a Reel every day. So it's just funny to think that. I had the same feelings about TikTok. I'm like, I'm not doing TikTok.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel that way about everything. And then I do it.
On the onset.
Okay, I'm sucked in now. Jake posted a video on Reels and it got like 1 million views. We're both like, what? Like, how? And he didn't blow up from that, but a few weeks later, I posted a video on Reels, and I remember specifically I posted it on a Thursday, and my birthday was that Saturday or Sunday, and I was going up to Vermont with all my friends because there's nothing else to do, so we just rented a cabin in Vermont and celebrated my birthday. And I remember it was that Friday night, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, we're all having fun, hanging out, like probably should go to bed. And I'm on my phone and I see this video has like 230,000 views. I was like, whoa, that can't be right.
Yeah. There's a glitch.
Yeah, it's a glitch. And so I went to bed and then I woke up the next day and Jake was kind of talking about his video and he was like, isn't that crazy? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, last night, like I checked my Instagram and I think I had a video that was kind of like going off. And I like pulled my phone. I was like, watch, it has like 2 million views. And I clicked on it and it did have 2 million views. I was like, wow. I was like, this is crazy. And then literally that whole weekend, every time I would open up my phone, it was just like the max amount of every kind of notification, like followers, comments, likes. And I was like, when is this going to stop?
Yeah.
And then it was my birthday. And so, tried to kind of unplug for a moment there, but it didn't stop for probably like 2 weeks. And it is one of like the highest or the most viral shuffle videos on the internet right now. It has 23.3 million views.
Wow.
Maybe more by this point, who knows?
Wow.
But yeah, that's where I gained my following from. But I'm not gonna lie, like I lost so many of those followers. And with like I've stayed a consistent number, and I'm talking about this because I know there's so many people out there who focus so much on that follower count and who get discouraged when they lose followers. And but for me, like I gained all these followers and it was like a yay for like a second. And then after a month, it was like a oh crap, like these people aren't even following for me. My content probably isn't even getting shown to them because all they followed me for was that one video. And so my engagement just plummeted, like everything completely plummeted. And I still had that number because as I was losing followers, I was still gaining followers, So we've been pretty consistent and I'm totally okay with that. Like for me, my follower count right now is I'm totally fine with where it's at. If it dips, that's okay. If it grows, that's awesome. But I feel like I have the community that I need to trust me and to keep on wanting to watch my content and support me and come to classes and whatnot. So yeah, but it really did all kind of go back to that one video. But over time, like I said, I work in influencer marketing. So my experience in my professional life has kind of bled into my experience in my own brand and what I'm trying to build and the success that I've seen there. And, I've taken different social media courses and I've educated myself and I, soak in all the content about content. And so, yeah, it's a big passion for me. And one day I would love to start to help other people create content and build their own brand. And that's actually going to be a part of my offerings on my website once it launches. So I'm excited about that to kind of help people, reach their goals, reach their social media goals, not only reach their shuffling goals, but shuffling with social media because they are kind of one like 2 peas in a pod.
Yeah. I mean, Instagram is our primary means of sharing our expression through this dance. So it's like, like they're going to be co-located all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there any like just small tips that you can give for someone who's looking to grow their followership, like off the top of your head?
Yeah. So number one is to be consistent. Whether that means posting every day or making sure that you post at least 3 days a week, like just being consistent. Don't post every single day for a week and then not post for 2 weeks and then try to come back to it. That's not to say that you're going to lose all your followers or have terrible engagement if you do that, but you should be consistently showing up for your followers, consistently posting. Hashtags are really helpful. I know that might seem like, okay, duh, Amy, but really like when I see someone post a video and there's no hashtags on it, I'm just like, why? So hashtags, also connecting and engaging with other people. Like it's a 2-way street. So you can't just post your content and then sit back and expect it to like blow up. Like it's an equal exchange of energy with social media. You also have to be supporting people who you do genuinely support and who you do follow in order to kind of receive that engagement right back to you. Oh my gosh, I could like go on.
and this. Yeah, we can cap it at 3. Maybe if you have one more that you're like super jazzed about.
Yeah. The one thing that I was going to say was just, making it easy for your audience to engage with you. So asking questions in your caption or using different stickers on your story. So like the polls or the questions or countdowns, like those are all ways for people to continue to engage with you and ways for you to continue show up in their feed as well.
Got it. Thank you for that knowledge bomb. I mean, I know there's definitely people out there who are looking to get more. Get more. And 100%. Like this is this is a marketing tool for you, because like you just mentioned that that's how you want to help people as well. But there's a lot of people like me who are clueless about that. Like I would like to get the podcast out to a wider audience, of course. Obviously I have my reservations about, doing certain things on social media and whatnot, and totally putting myself out there. It's like there's insecurities involved and all this stuff. So like being able to be handheld and to know exactly how to do it, I think would be, very valuable for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. And there are like so many resources out there too. And like I said, I've done my own research, and my professional career has also helped me as well. But yeah, it's kind of endless, and it's also always evolving. So, the stuff that you might have read 3 years ago might not really apply now anymore. So it's also like constantly educating yourself and keeping with the times and the algorithm and all of that good stuff.
Got it. Yes. It seems like you're very passionate about it, and you know the ropes, and you've put in the work to get to where you are right now. It seems like you enjoy it.
I do.
But has there ever been, and I'll kind of open this up, not just to the social media aspect of it and like the building of the brand and all those things, but also to your shuffle journey as well and teaching. Has there been parts that have not been fun? Have been challenging, kind of like what do they call it? The necessary like evils, I would say, regarding all of it. And like I said, that could be the social media aspect of it. That could be shuffling. That could be the teaching, that sort of thing.
Also, I'll start with social media just because that's so fresh in my head. Yes. Oh my gosh. It is so frustrating. But I felt like I hit a moment not too long ago, like maybe in the last year or so, of just like not caring. I'm like, I don't care if I have 30,000 followers and this video only gets 100 likes, or I don't care if this video only gets seen by X amount of people. And, I say that sometimes, and sometimes I'm like, no, I do care. But I've really, really tried to retrain my brain and switch my mindset to just not caring. And I find that once you make that switch, things really start to happen. And it's not just with me. Like I've heard and I've seen that with other people. They're like, yeah, once I started just not care, like all of a sudden things started to happen for me. And I know Jay kind of had like the same experience with that. So that's number one with social media. There's been so many points that I wanted to give up, so many points where I'm like, why? Or like, we're all guilty of it. You see your friends just blow up, and I'm like, I've been at this for years and I haven't like caught that break, but like good for you, but like why not me? And it's the ego that comes in for sure. It's all ego. So I've really had to do a lot to retrain my brain and the way that I think and the way that I look at like my success and other people's successes, because social media is discouraging, and it's a constant game of comparison. Oh my gosh, it's insane. So I think that that's a constant struggle and something that I will continue to struggle with. But being able to recognize it and to recognize the toxicity of it, and to be able to be like, okay, no, I'm not going to use Instagram for a month. And for me, that's hard with, the promo and the classes and all of that. But there have been times where I'm like, no, I'm just not going to use it for like a week. And like that reset is really important. So I encourage people who, if you feel like you're at that point where it feels really toxic and it feels really icky, and you're still posting, but it's not giving you any type of joy, and you don't even know why you're posting anymore, like take a break, like take a breather, do a little reset, and just kind of like go inward and be like, well, why am I sharing this? Like, why am I dancing? Like, why am I doing this? So that's number one with the social media stuff. But with dance, I feel like there's been a lot of points that I've hit with dance, and after, let's say I'm dancing for 2 years and then I have a really crappy week, and I'm like, like I feel like I just forgot how to dance. Like I just don't know what I'm doing anymore. And a lot of those moments would happen in like transition periods, so I move into a new space and all of a sudden I'm out of my funk, I'm out of my flow, or in a funk and out of my flow more so. Like having like big transition points in my life, or moving to a new place, or starting a new career. And my job is pretty taxing at times, and I'm getting into a very busy season once again, with the holidays coming up and a lot of brands doing more campaigns than usual. So I'm getting into my busy season with work. And I feel like whenever I hit that point, I feel like I don't have time for dance. I don't even want to dance. When I do have the time, I'm just tired and it's not what I want to do. And so, I feel like a lot of those moments come from other things happening in my life. And I think it's really important for people to recognize that when there are those months or those weeks or maybe even a year that you're not dancing, like what else needed your attention at that time? Like what else did you need to focus on? Like was it you? Was it family? Was it
Mm.
a relationship? Was it your career? Like I never try to say like, oh, like you just fell off, because it's not necessarily falling off, but it's just falling into something that makes more sense for you at the time. So yeah, if anyone is like listening and is in that funk right now, like just keep at it. You'll get through it. Like don't ever feel like, oh, I've fallen off and I can't get back. Because once you start shuffling, it's really hard to stop. Super fun, especially once you build that muscle memory. Like that's not going to go away unless if you stop for like a really long time. So yeah, if you feel like you're in a funk, just try to ride the funk out and like think about like why you're in that funk. And then with teaching, yes, I've definitely hit points like when we moved to Denver specifically, we're like, ugh, like how are we going to be able to build this to the point that we need to build it to, and how are we going to get people to come to
It's
classes?
like a daunting task.
Yeah. Oh my God, so daunting. And like the Mile High community, like there aren't that many people who teach classes out here, so people aren't used to taking classes. They're not as open to taking classes. They're more, freestyle shufflers, and they
Let's
don't.
all meet up and figure it
Let's all
out.
meet
Yeah.
up. Yeah. And no one's really collaborating. No one's really doing choreographies out here. So we were like, well, what are we gonna do? But luckily we did get in with Collaboratory, and that is a dance studio. So we had not only shufflers, of course, show up, but dancers and people who wanted to just learn how to shuffle. They already have a dance background, but they're like, oh, is shuffling class on the schedule? Like, I'll show up.
Yeah, they got the subscription. They get as many classes as they want. So it's like, stop by the shuffle.
Totally.
The shuffle class.
Yeah. And there's even been times where, they put us on a different day for a month, and the turnout's just so much worse on that day for whatever reason. And so whenever I hit those moments, I always just try to remind myself, like, it's not going to be like this forever. You're going to get through this. Just like try to see the light at the end of the tunnel and just work through what you need to work through, like in that current moment. But yeah, I've hit so many points in all the things, social media, shuffling, my career, teaching, that have felt like moments that are like, ugh. But I've never like let any of that stop me. Like I've always kept going. I've never thought about not teaching. I've never thought about not shuffling. I've never thought about not doing the social media thing. Like those are all things that I'm really passionate about. So I would never just let those go because of, a bad week that I'm having.
Yeah, I think the theme there for all three of those that you mentioned, like the social media aspect of it, consistency, the dancing part of it, consistency, teaching, you've been consistent
for sure.
throughout. Like, so good things happen to people who persist and continue to do what they feel is right in their own like aura and mentee.
For sure.
So, kudos to you for sticking through it and just getting through the rough patches that you've had for each of them and having them be instructors versus things that made you quit or not want to move forward. So
it's never going to be easy. Like you're always nothing good. They say nothing good comes easy. And like all four of those things that I just talked about, like none of them came easy. My career, my following, teaching, learning how to shuffle. Like, so you do have to put in the work, and you are going to reach hard times, and that's okay. Like it's all a part of the journey.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I'm sure you've grown through it, and you become a better person throughout.
You get so much out of those moments.
So where are you now, like in your journey? Like you've gone through the rigors, you've gone through some really great things too. You've had blessings, you've had struggles, you've had all the above. Where are you today? Where do you want to take this? Like, what is your vision, your aspirations, all the above?
Yeah. So today I'm grinding away. Obviously, I mentioned like I still work 9 to 5, so I still really do need that to support me and to keep me busy also. But I think I'd be fine without my full-time job keeping busy. But yeah, I do still work full-time, so I am still finding that balance. And I teach probably on average like 3 days a week between private lessons or virtual classes or the classes that we teach at Collaboratory. And then the festivals have been really great for me right now. And I hope that continues into the next festival season. Also kind of right now and what's to come is my website that I mentioned before. So by the time this airs, it will be launched, flowwithamy.com, and it'll kind of have, my schedule, my classes, a place for you to book, And I'll also have like those social media, building your brand kind of offerings as well. So yeah, I'm really trying to just take this into my own hands. And, while I've loved my career and I've loved what I've learned, it really is starting to get in the way of my personal goals. So I'm really trying to make that shift into being my own boss, working for myself. And I know it's going to be really hard. And it still has been really hard and challenging. I work all day and all night and a lot of weekends too. And now I'm even working at these music festivals. And even though it doesn't feel like work, but yeah, like the grind is real right now. And I'm just hoping and praying, and I know it will. It'll all pay off. Hopefully by the end of this year, like everything really starts to shift.
That's awesome.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah. It seems like you're tapping in and like, you know where you want to take this. Like you want to free up your time so that you can be doing exactly what you were put on this earth to do. And that's to help teach, and instruct, share the gift that you have with other people. And I think a lot of amazing things will happen when you free up your time so that you can do just that. Like you probably will feel like you're never working a day in your life from that point on.
I hope so. Yeah. And it took me a while to get to the point of like, just make the website and just get the LLC and just do the EIN and do all the things and just like do it, just rip the Band-Aid off. And so that was in May of this year. And I kind of got to a point with my job where I was just really frustrated and I felt like I wasn't heard, felt like I wasn't seen. And yeah, I was just like, I need to just make this decision for myself and just, like I said, rip the Band-Aid off and pay for the Squarespace and do all the things and set up my bank account. And yeah, it's been a grueling summer. And yeah, I'm just seeing that light at the end of the tunnel and hoping that it'll all pay off.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here. Amy's coming out with her website. Yeah, go check it out. It'll be in the show notes. I'm sure of it.
Currently holding myself accountable.
Yes. You heard it here.
Don't you forget.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you for spinning us up on what you're up to and like kind of what the future looks like moving forward. But I think we're going to roll into the final segment of the show. So this is the world famous Final Five. These are the 5 questions that I ask all the shufflers that are on the podcast. So I'd love to hear your responses to these and how they relate to other shufflers or how they're totally different. That's the fun part about it.
Right, cool.
So the first question that I have for you is, what is your favorite musical genre?
Favorite musical genre. So this goes back to like, I've always loved music. My parents grew up with, we grew up listening to music. My parents heavily influenced our music intake, disco, rock and roll. And growing up, I loved rock. Like I loved rock and roll. That was my favorite genre. I felt like it was kind of like healing in a way, like, the drums and the beats and the bass and whatnot. So I think my favorite musical genre now, kind of after like falling into EDM, is definitely bass music. And that started like my freshman year of college. I finally went to, my first rave. Not finally even, because I was probably like 2 weeks into my 18th birthday, or my 18th year, so couldn't really go to that many shows and experiences. But yeah, I fell into bass music because I knew who Skrillex. I didn't know who Skrillex was. I just knew the word Skrillex.
Yeah.
I remember I went to my first rave. This was like September of 2012. And oh my gosh, that feels like so long ago. Well, like September of 2012, went to my first rave. And then afterwards, I'm like, well, I like EDM. Like, what else do I know? And at the time, there was like Levels, Skrillex remix, or Cinema, Skrillex remix. So I thought Skrillex was a whole genre. So I guess my favorite genre is Skrillex. But anyways, I typed Skrillex into Pandora and was served up, all this beautiful dubstep. And so, yeah, I started to really get into like Skrillex and dubstep, and then discovered my love for Zed's Dead. And yeah, so I loved bass music far before I ever started shuffling. And so that's kind of always been like at my core and like who I am. And now like here we are, bass capital, Denver, baby. So,
surprise.
Weird. How did I end up here?
Yeah. So this is all throughout college that you were just slowly introducing yourself to more and more music, or quickly introducing yourself
I mean,
to
like
more music.
I didn't even really listen to house music at all until I started shuffling. In fact, I thought it was boring. I didn't like it. And then I heard a Chami set It was like his 2015 Ultra set. And I remember thinking like, oh, I get it now. Like this is funky. This is cool. I could get down with this. But yeah, it really was like bass music. And where I went to school in Arizona was very heavily influenced by trap. And I
Okay.
think that was just the timing too, like Foster Damas and RL Grime, like all these big trap artists, Troy Boy, like that was definitely like the core of EDM at the time, where I was.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I've progressed over the years, and you found me at Dream State, so
Let's go.
that was a big step.
That was amazing. That was a
Yeah,
huge surprise too, seeing
right.
both you and Jake there. That was great.
Yeah, I mean, I love all types of music. The one that I haven't gotten into yet, and I'm gonna get tomatoes thrown at me for this, but techno is just not.
Ah, get her.
I know, no, but like
All the tomatoes
there's
in the world.
no, really no, because I know that there's something I'm not getting. There's something I'm not grasping.
Do you see how I'm dressed right now?
I know. God, take it back, take it back. No, but
Read the room, Amy.
that's probably the only genre that I haven't really gotten into. Like,
Got it.
but
I
even
understand.
trance was hanging out like with techno for a bit, but now I like trance and I get it. So yeah, I just need something to introduce me into like every kind of genre for me to like really get it and understand it. So it's coming with techno, but for now, like the bass just has a chokehold on me. Like I love bass music. Not, I wouldn't say all. I don't love rhythm. Rhythm's probably the only genre of bass that I'm not a huge fan of.
It's aggressive. It's very aggressive.
Very aggressive. But I respect the people who get it and know it and love it, just like techno.
Yeah, yeah. I think I can help you with this techno journey of yours.
Please, help me.
Maybe I can send you some like melodic stuff that would
Oh,
good.
I do like Miss Monique. She's like melodic techno, right?
She's prog house and yeah, she gets into melodic techno. Those actually
Yeah.
they mix well together and they go very well together. So
Okay.
yeah, Miss Monique. But the thing is, like with Miss Monique, like you have a lot of her OG tracks that are very beautiful,
She's
but
so
like
good.
but when she plays a set, she throws like heavy hitting stuff like hard trance and things like
Yeah.
that. It's actually pretty cool. But
Yeah, I was introduced to her at Dream State this year. And now, like, whenever we're cooking dinner, hanging out, especially with Lena and Austin, because they're my homies and they love trance and techno and people like Miss Monique. So I've been exposed to a lot from them and, just from friends in general, but they've really opened my eyes to, trance and these different kinds of artists and techno who I wouldn't really get or understand if I didn't have that connection.
yeah, that's cool. That's cool to bounce things off of other
Yeah.
friends and have them expose you to music. You expose them, and
Yeah.
it's just like this melting pot.
it's awesome.
Yeah. I always enjoy it. Are you going to Dream State this year?
I'm not.
Okay.
Not this year. I would like to go back eventually. There are just so many festivals out there, and
Yeah.
it's not. I loved Dream State. Like it was great, and it was so different from any other festival that I've been to. But you get to a point where you're trying to do something different, do something new. So I probably won't go back this year, but I think I'll find my way back there eventually.
Got it. Yeah, I have in my own head, like I feel like I have like, okay, these are my staple festivals. Like
Yeah,
this will
for
be
sure.
like every like year in, year out. But I might need to revisit that belief system of like I need to go back to this year and year and year and
Yeah.
year and year again. Because it's like, no, there's a lot of festivals happening in South America, in
gosh,
Europe,
yeah.
in you know what I mean, in these other places that are just going to be a novel experience. And it's like, why sell yourself short by going to the same festival time and time again?
Yeah.
Just because even though you had that like you have that attachment to it because like you've
Yeah.
had such good vibes there, and
I
you
definitely have
met
festivals like that.
yeah, you like met new friends there, and like you had all this like positive and good affect about it. But like that could be another festival, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like I think there's probably a balance that you need to draw of like attaching yourself to a
Yeah.
festival and then like being able to let it go after a while too.
Definitely. Oh, we have some festivals that we are attached to. And of course, they're like the most expensive ones. So it's like, yeah, we really need to, put a stop to some of them at some point. But then there's the other side of like, well, like, for example, Coachella. I've been to Coachella 8 years in a row.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, why would I stop going? Like, I'm so good at it. I know what I'm doing. Like, I know the place like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Like, I can prepare for this in my sleep. So yeah, there's pros and cons to going back to the same festival year after year.
Maybe that's the one that you always keep, and then you
could be, like,
explore.
one.
Yeah.
One.
I don't think it's that bad to have like the one. You know what I mean? The one thing, like the center that you return to, and then you venture off and you find the novel experiences within the other ones. So
because there are so many.
Yeah, you got to strategize about this stuff. You know,
for sure.
But next question for you. I love that tangent, by the way. What is your favorite place to dance?
Speaking of festivals, I would say my favorite place to dance is just in the festival environment. I always feel like a superhuman when I'm dancing at festivals. Like, moves come out that I didn't really know I had in me, or I feel like there's a lot of times where I look back at my videos from a specific festival and I'm doing the same combo over and over again. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, why did I just decide to rinse like that at like throughout this entire like festival like experience? So I feel like every festival kind of brings something else out of me. And also watching other people dance, like I get inspired by them. And also I think being in Denver and then going to festivals that are in California or New York or Florida at this like lower elevation is like, wow, like I can dance forever. So that kind of contributes to it a little bit too. But yeah, definitely music festivals, and being in that environment and around other people.
Yeah, we're like the Olympic training center for shufflers.
For real.
Yeah, exactly. I do feel like I have more in my fuel tank when I do go to a lower elevation, take a lower elevation visit to wherever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do feel like I've just got a couple more seconds, or maybe a couple more tens of seconds, like in my run, you know what I mean? When I'm just getting after it. So shout out Denver for that.
For real. Mile high, baby.
What has been your favorite set, show, or festival that you've attended?
Oh my gosh, that is a very loaded question.
If it's like choosing your favorite child, just name a couple. You know what I mean? Pay homage to a couple.
Yeah. So I mentioned Coachella, how I've gone back year after year. So of course that's my favorite festival. I wouldn't go back 8 years, time and time again if I didn't just like love it. It's also the one festival that all my friends from my hometown and just friends from the East Coast, like we all go to. And, there's me who I go to 10 festivals a year. Well, I have a lot of friends who are from my hometown who that's the only festival they go to. So it's like a little reunion for all of us. And sometimes it's the only time in the entire year that I see some of those people who I grew up with and, saw every single day in school and whatnot. So it's nice to have that to like really come home to. Like I really do feel like Coachella is home for me. And let's see, favorite like set. I can't not talk about Skrillex at Red Rocks because that was like everything and more. I talked about Skrillex earlier and how that's kind of what led me into EDM and bass music. And I've always been obsessed with him. I've always thought that he is just a master at his craft. And even when he was, just making dubstep music all the way up to like now where he just has his hands in all these different pots, like I just admire him so much as an artist. And so to watch him for 5 hours straight and basically left no crumbs. Like I heard everything I wanted to hear, songs that I've never heard live. And I was counting like how many times I've seen him. And that was probably like my 18th time seeing him.
Wow.
And I've never had that experience from one of his sets. So yeah, it was amazing. He played throwbacks, new stuff, old stuff. And there was like little to no production, which I thought was just so cool that he was still able to just basically have us everyone in the palm of his hand up until the very last song with like very minimal production. People were saying like, can't believe Skrillex didn't pee for like 5 hours. I'm like, neither did I. Like I did not leave my spot once. Because it was just so epic. And I'm really happy I had a chance to go because I know a lot of people didn't.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Yeah, I actually there was like a raffle that you could enter to get a chance to buy tickets. And I sent the raffle to all of my Coachella friends. And so one of my friends who lives in Brooklyn is the one person who got the raffle. And so she ended up being able to get the tickets for us. So wouldn't have gone if it wasn't for her. Shout out Alyssa. But yeah, honestly, I I'm never like walking away from a festival like that wasn't that good. Like
Mhm.
so many of my experiences are just like so epic, and also the ones that are so fresh in my head I think really stand out to me. Like Elements this past weekend was so amazing in so many ways, or 2 weeks ago. And I went back to Electric Forest for the first time after a couple of years this year, and Jake wasn't with me, which is abnormal. He's always with me at festivals. We're always going to the festivals together. But not that I didn't love not having him there, but to have that experience without him was also really interesting. But yeah, I could name so many more that are kind of like up there. Oh, can I talk about one more?
Yeah, send it.
Fred again at Coachella last year, which is such an epic moment. He played at like 6 p.m. and people didn't really know who he was.
Mhm.
I mean, people at Coachella knew who he was because he packed the tent out. But even afterwards, I'd be like, oh, you know Fred again? And even still to this day, people are like, no. And I'm like, how do you not know Fred again? You know Fred again?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, his set at Coachella, it was 2022. It was just such a movie. Like we were in the middle of the tent. It was golden houred, like shoulder to shoulder with everyone around us, but like no one cared. Like everybody was totally okay with being on top of each other, like bouncing up and down, hugging each other, crying, like having these like such spectacular moments, because his music is very emotional. I feel like it's like therapy in motion. Like his songs just like really hit you in a way that that are hard to put into words. So yeah, that was really special as well.
And I love how he's such a musician. Like he is very engaged. He's not just using CDJs and decks. Like he has like a little MIDI controller that he's messing with. He's got keyboards and things like that. Like he's very engaged with his music. And so like he's putting his heart into it. He's not pressing play. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like
It's
with all
really
that.
inspiring.
So that's awesome. Any others?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we have time.
Got it. It's all good. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to pull the plug too.
Those are probably the big two. We love those boys.
Amazing. And I just want to. I want the audience just to have a little bit of clarity on the Skrillex ticket situation, where a lot of the diehard fans could not get tickets to that show. So. There was a scalping bot, or many of them, and it was kind of like an operation from what I gathered, where they bought all the tickets as soon as they dropped, and then they resold them on the market, and then for astronomical prices. So a lot of the people who are Skrillex fans were not able to go to that show. It was very unfortunate. And the ones that did, paid an arm and a leg for it. So I guess this is just like advocacy against scalping, because it's not cool. And if my congressman is listening, do some legislation against it, I guess. Honestly, I did my part.
Thank you. No, but honestly, I would have. When Jake and I were standing there at that show, and we're like, we would have paid $1,000 to be here right now. Like, this is insane. And we only had to pay like about 100 or so. But yeah, the bots, not cool, man.
Yeah, totally not cool. That's not player. Not player. All right. I have 2 more questions for you.
Alrighty.
The second to last is, what is your favorite book?
Favorite book? So I don't really read much. Which I've never been a reader. But I did read one book. So that's probably my favorite book. Now, I've picked up books here and there, but then I just like stopped reading them. But the one book that I read from start to finish, it's a self-help book, but it's called The 5-Second Rule. Have you read that one?
No, I have not.
It's by Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins also has a podcast, and that's how I tune in with her more now and learn from her now. But it's Mel Robbins' podcast. She's amazing. But basically, Mel Robbins is this woman. I think she's probably like in her 50s now, maybe, but lost her job in her 40s, like felt like she was about to get a divorce and was just not in a good place. And just kind of felt like she was in a downward spiral and was like, oh, this is where I'm at now. And life just sucks. And getting the kids out the door late for school and whatever, like here we are. But then she talks about this moment where she was sitting in her living room one night and there was a rocket ship launch and they counted down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the rocket just took off. And she was like, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. Like when my alarm goes off, I'm going to count backwards from 5. I'm not going to hit snooze and I'm just going to get up and do it. And basically she kind of, after that, she went into this whole like neuroscience like discovery and journey and started to like do a lot of research of like, well, is that really effective? Like me counting backwards from 5 and doing the thing that I want to do. And so essentially it is. And the whole book is about how, you have 5 seconds to act on something before your other thoughts enter your mind and you're off to the next thing. And so it's this 5-second rule method. And I try to apply it as much as I can in my everyday life, especially when it comes to getting out of bed in the morning, because I'm a snoozer. I'm such a snoozer.
Same.
Yeah, it's so nice. Right? But what's even more nice is when you count backwards from 5, wake up, and then you're standing at the counter, like brushing your teeth, and you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Like now I'm going about my day and I'm up and I'm doing the things. And so, yeah, she kind of started doing it with getting out of bed in the morning, but then she started to just do it everywhere in life. Like, okay, I want to ask my boss for a raise. Like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, do you have a minute? Like, and just using that method of counting backwards to reach your goals. Because once you start to let time pass, like I said, other thoughts just start to creep into your mind, and then you
the
just
excuses the excuses around why you shouldn't do it. Or
Yep. So it's helped me so much. It's helped me just like put myself out there, or like just post a video, or just reach out to that person, or just DM that brand. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And just like do it. But yeah, it's called the 5-second rule. She also has another book that I haven't read, but it's called The High Five Habit.
Okay.
And it's basically about like looking yourself in the mirror every morning and like giving yourself a high five and being like, you can do this, like you're awesome. And there's so many people who have a hard time just looking at themselves in the mirror and like believing in themselves. She probably has a few other books too, but yeah, Mel Robbins, she is everything. I love her.
It seems like very simple information, but like it can make a huge impact. Like if you implement it every single day. So I love that. You know what I mean? I should probably take that advice, because I am a snoozer, and like those 10 minutes, they hit. You know what I mean? They definitely hit. But what hits better is me pulling myself out of the bed to go stand on the balcony to get this first ray of sun, and then I'm up. You know what I mean? And it's like that. Like that feels better, that I've already conquered the morning because I didn't drag my ass like out of bed. Like it wasn't a process that had more struggle in it than what it needed to have.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure. It doesn't have to be this hard.
Yeah.
Count backwards from 5 and just do it.
I got that. And I'll put that book in the show notes for people definitely who want to check it out. So I have one more question for you. Okay. If you could put any message on the main stage production of a large scale festival, let's think Coachella, let's think like EDC Las Vegas, something big. What would that message say? And there would be tens of thousands of people viewing it.
Yeah. So you bring up Coachella and like putting out a message. And the one thing that really stands out to me, and I'm kind of copying Billie Eilish's style by saying this, but she got on the mic at Coachella. This was last year. She headlined in 2022. And she was like, please don't judge anyone. Like, I want everyone here to be as comfortable as possible. Like, please don't judge people. Like, and it was just so random, like the time that she said in her set. And I don't know what prompted her to say that, but I was like, wow, like, yeah, no one should be judging anyone here. And so I think that's probably what I would say. Like, don't judge, like, just keep to yourself, or not even keep to yourself, but like, don't pass judgment and just worry about yourself more so. And yeah, I feel like we experience that a lot just in life in general, people judging and you don't even realize that you're doing it. So to have that like reminder is like, yeah, no, I shouldn't be judging that person. Like maybe they're not in a good place right now, or maybe they just had a really hard conversation, or whatever the case might be. And, it even goes to people working the concessions or the bartenders or whatever.
They're too slow, or blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
And it's like, don't judge them. Like, you don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what happened right before this, or what they have to do tomorrow, or what they have going on at home.
Or the last customer that they had that was, not being too nice or whatever. Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it too. Like, when I if someone was rude to me and I walk away, I'm like, ugh. But it's like, no, maybe there's a reason for that. Like, don't judge and just like worry about yourself.
Yeah. Context matters. You know what I mean? You don't know what people are going through, and you don't know what their scars have been, whether that be internal or, you know what I mean, mentally or physically or whatever else.
Yeah. And it also comes to not judging yourself too, because I know that they're, especially like, we're in these environments and people can be, doing substances or whatever, and you might get in your head, or you might be like, well, why is that person looking at me, or whatever the case might be. And it's important to also realize that, like, you are you're here, nothing else really matters. Like, just enjoy that moment. That person probably thinks nothing of you right now, and just live your life.
Yeah. That's also important to reflect back on you. Like, don't judge yourself.
Yeah.
Be nice to yourself. Be nice to yourself.
Be nice to yourself.
Give yourself a little bit of grace every once in a while.
Yeah, definitely. I'm talking to myself too. Like, I'm not perfect at not judging or not judging other people or not judging myself, but it's something that I continuously try to work on. So yeah, I think that'd be a good message.
Yeah. So long as it's out and like open and you're conscious of it and you're working on it, just both and I'm not talking at you, like just in general, like the self-dialogue that you have for yourself and the judgments that you cast on yourself, but also, those judgments that you're saying about other people. So long as you're aware of it and you know that it might not be fair, either in or out. That's good. That's steps in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely.
So that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for that response and your responses for those questions. Is there anything else that, before we get out of here, is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners before we say our farewells?
Yeah, I mean, nothing that I really had in mind specifically, but I know a lot of people listening to this podcast are, people who are on their shuffle journey, or maybe people who are trying to start their shuffle journey. And there's going to be points that you'll hit that feel frustrating or that feel like a hump that you can't get over. And, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just don't give up and just keep going and just trust the process. And that sounds so cliche, but it really has worked out for me. And, I've been in points in my life where, I'm like, okay, well, this is just it and this is how it is and whatever, you'll just have to accept it. But no, like, there is so much good out there. And as long as you are consistent in what you're doing and you believe in yourself, like, the moment you start believing in yourself is when things will start to happen. If you don't believe in yourself and if you don't trust in yourself and if you don't trust the process, then you're just going to be stuck in that place until you start to switch your mindset. So yeah, I think that's what I can really leave this at, is just keep going. And I'm here. I love to talk. I love to chat. I love to help people. So I'm always here to connect and love meeting new people. And I love vibing with the community and continuing to like foster and build that. So yeah, if you can like use me as an inspiration to get to where you want to go, then that's amazing too. But yeah, everyone just needs to just keep at it and trust and believe.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for the encouraging words for our listeners.
Of course.
I'm sure that, that and our conversation as a whole has resonated with a lot of people. Where can people find you after the conversation and reach out, connect, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So I am on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is definitely where I'm on more frequently, but it's Amy Conte, Amy with 2 Y's, so Amy YY, AMYY, AMYY, CONTE on all my socials. I'm also on YouTube. You can kind of just find all those links through my profiles. And then, yes, by the time this comes out, I will have my website, flowwithamy.com. So yeah, hit me up there and let's make some magic.
Amazing. Amy, thank you so much for being on. It was an absolute pleasure. I loved our conversation. And I think a lot of people will get a ton of value out of this. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you, friend.
Yes, appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We are past the launch, and I'm so appreciative of the support that the show has received. You guys have really stepped up in a huge way, and I'm eternally grateful for that. I know this is a big ask due to the show just starting, and it's very much in its infancy, but any and all support would really be amazing from you guys. So I just wanted to come on and list a couple ways that you guys can help out the podcast moving forward. So first and foremost, subscribing to the YouTube channel would be a huge help. Also sharing and following the show on other social media platforms, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but in particular, YouTube will really help increase the visibility of the show, and it can help to reach a wider audience as well. In addition to this, leaving a review on anywhere where podcasts are distributed, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, can really leave a positive impression on new listeners, and it will help them discover the podcast more readily. Also, engaging with the podcast, so leaving comments, participating in social media discussions, and just anything that would really help build a community around the podcast would be of great assistance. And please feel free, DM me my personal Instagram at Patty Creates, or the show's Instagram at the Shuffle Curious Podcast, with the spaces being underscores. I would love to hear any feedback, any ideas, any discourse around the show. It would be an honor to hear you guys out and implement some of the ideas and the feedback that you guys have for me. Also, donating to the podcast directly or purchasing a Shuffle Curious shirt would help out a lot. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, and unfortunately money that goes into the podcast, and it will continue to go into the podcast. So let's just get one thing straight here. It's really been a complete joy doing the show, and no matter how much or how little monetary assistance the show receives, we'll still be performing the mission of bringing the Shuffle community together. But with a little bit of help, I'll be able to travel more for these interviews, buy better equipment, be able to compensate all the amazing people who have made the show a reality and have volunteered their time, things of that nature. So buying a shirt would be much more than buying a shirt. And I don't know if you guys realize, but if I ever saw someone at a festival wearing a Shuffle Curious podcast shirt, you would be my best friend in a huge way. I'd love to see it, and I'd give you a big bear hug. So you can purchase these shirts on the Instagram bio of the show, also the show's website, and then I'll have links in the show notes as well. As for the donation, just please, send me a DM if you feel inclined to donate to the show. I will definitely entertain that, and if you're so inclined, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm not going to create a button for donating to the show or GoFundMe or anything like that. It would just be a conversation between you and I. So, and I thank you for that consideration. But lastly, you guys have supported the show just by listening. Also listening to this whole outro, that's awesome. You guys rule for doing that. And I just cannot understate my appreciation for all of you guys, for being a part of this crazy ride that it's been so far. So without further ado, I wanted to get on. I'll give you guys a couple of ways that you can support. You can run with as many or as little of them as you would like, but I thank you, regardless for your listenership and support. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Please get out there and dance, stay curious, and I will see you in the next episode, friend.